It's another episode of Lead with Storytelling, and today I am honored to have Advita Patel with me. Hi, Advita.
Hi, Sochi. How are you?
I am good. I'm good. Thank you so much for making the time out of your very busy schedule to speak with me.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Awesome. Advita is a powerhouse in business communications, specializing in internal comms and employee experience. As the founder of Comms Rebel, she helps organizations build thriving, inclusive cultures. And as co-founder of A Leader Like Me, she drives change through inclusive leadership and communication strategies. She's also an award-winning podcaster, speaker, and co-author of Building a Culture of Inclusivity, a best-selling guide for leaders committed to fostering belonging in the workplace. Advita's passion for confidence and leadership stems from her own journey, transforming self-doubt into a career dedicated to coaching others to unlock their potential. She launched the Asian Comms Network to support Asian professionals in PR, marketing, and journalism. And in 2025, this year, she would be making history and as the first South Asian woman president of the Chartered Institute of Public Relations. She's currently working on her second book. Hopefully we'll hear more about it, focusing on confidence in the workplace. And before we jump into conversations, I'd like to say congratulations again, Advita, on your present role as the president of CIPR.
Thank you. Thank you so much. No, it's been when I hear presenters read out the things I'm doing, I now know why people go, wow, you've got a very vibrant, busy life. And and it's all those things that you read out are definitely my passion points, which never, and as cheesy as we say in the UK, in Manchester, as it might sound, it definitely doesn't feel like work, which is why I like to get involved in so many different things, including the presidency that you mentioned for the Chartered Institute of Public Relations, which is a membership body, a global membership body, because we do have members across the globe, but predominantly in the UK, helping public relations, communications, public affairs, internal comms, all the comms disciplines, build career confidence and also understand how they become more chartered professionals as well. And it's a privilege to be able to support the organisation and be the first, not only South Asian woman to be the president, but also the first person of colour that the Institute has had in the last 75 years. And I feel like we've broken the mould there a little bit, and hopefully encouraging other people who may not feel they belong in being in those positions belong. And that's one of the drivers of me stepping into the presidency role, which it's just been a brilliant experience so far.
And that's just great. I mean, it means a lot to me because often I have guests who come on, and I think one of the things that have attracted me to people is been how consistent they've been with their purpose, more or less. You can sense it. They don't really say it, they don't write it out, and you're very consistent and prolific content creator. And I think one of the common threads in your writings and your posts on LinkedIn has always been that vulnerability. And speaking to that vulnerability, I know I did read one of your posts about your beginnings and how you had this not so nice encounter and at the start of your career, and how the support that you had was able to propel you even more, and you actually stayed the course. And I can see how that's such a big deal right now. I mean, in your writing, in your advocacy, and in your work, that people build confidence in order to have a fruitful, meaningful career.
Yeah, 100% spot on. The post that you're referencing was about my experience in my first ever office role. So I just graduated from university, and my parents worked for themselves. So I never grew up in a home where my parents spoke about office culture and behaviours in the office. They were their own bosses. They didn't answer to anyone really apart from themselves. So I grew up in a very entrepreneurial house. I saw the ups and downs of working, people working for themselves. So I always had this ambition to work in an organization and working in an office. And in that first job, you're right, what you read. I was, from what I now know, I didn't at the time, to be fair, I was treated very differently from my colleagues, and my boss was unkind. And it made me absolutely miserable in my job, where my parents noticed. And they're the ones who gave me permission to leave. And sometimes we need that supportive community around us to give us permission to say, you know what, it's okay for you to let it go. You don't have to persevere when somebody who should know better is treating you unfairly. And that's where my passion, Sochi, came from, workplace culture. And I wasn't working in communications then, by the way. It wasn't a communications role. I got involved in communications when I went to my second job, where I met Catherine, who I spoke about on that LinkedIn post. And that was my first experience of an ally and an advocate. And that's exactly what Catherine did. She advocated for me, and she spoke about me in rooms where I wasn't. And she championed and sponsored me to get involved in things that I probably would never have had the opportunity to get involved in. And that is the power of an ally and the power of a workplace culture that helps people thrive, not just survive. And I am very, I would say, obsessed almost about confidence in the workplace, because when leaders lack confidence, their toxic traits show very clearly, and they project their own insecurities onto their team, which is why so many people have such bad experiences with certain leaders. And this is after decades of observing behaviors of great leaders and leaders who have really poor behaviors and challenging traits. And those who are poor leaders or non-inclusive leaders, what I've noticed, one of the common themes that they tend to have is their own insecurities and how they believe they need their egos to help them do much better work. And those who are great leaders are very well self-assured, confident, and know themselves well enough to know when to ask for help, when to surround themselves with people who are better than them, and also open up the door for others to come in, regardless of their background, their demographic, their characteristic. Those are the leaders who you remember for years after you've left that organization. And that's what allyship, advocacy, and great inclusive leaders bring. And confidence is the common theme, which is why I care a lot about confident workplaces and confident leaders, and how we can become more confident in ourselves so we can spot these red flags, so we can say to ourselves, I deserve better. I'm not the failure. They're the failure for letting me down, and be able to exit without it harming our well-being and mental health. And we need an element of confidence and self-esteem to be able to recognize those signs and understand that it's not us, it's the culture and the environment that we are in.
I guess we'll get to a point where we'll touch on how you make time for all of these things. Yeah, I mean, okay. So, at your status, at the level which you operate, it's pretty much back to back. I mean, I know how your busy schedule has, could be, and yet you make this time to share these insights, compose very compelling narratives that you share quite generously on social media. But we know that you are very busy. So again, we're going to talk about that.
I want to actually just address that busyness that you've mentioned.
Yeah.
And I want to debunk the myth around busyness.
Good.
A lot of people do say that to me, that you are so busy, like how do you fit everything in? The thing with busyness, Sochi, is that busyness is about priorities. So what are your key priorities, right? And the things that are important to you, you will prioritize. You'll make it a priority. And that's what I do ultimately. And the other thing I want to also acknowledge is that I don't do this on my own. And I think sometimes externally it feels like, oh my goodness, comparison is a thief of joy, right? This is a quote that I often use with my clients that I work with, or coaches that often say to me, how do you do it? I wish I could do more. I feel irrelevant, or I feel inadequate. And I'm like, listen, first of all, I have a team. I've got a team of people who help me do the work that I do. And that isn't spoken about as much as it should be from other people as well. It's okay to ask for help. And if you have the privilege to do so, it's okay to employ the people to help you. And I'm very lucky that I've got a great team of people who manage my diary, who make sure that I turn up on time for things, who work with clients with me. So I've got a fantastic group of associates who deliver client services on my behalf as well and work with clients alongside me. I couldn't do anything that I'm doing today if it wasn't for my team. And I really want your listeners to understand that we can only do the things within our remit, and nobody should ever feel inadequate about what they are doing, because we all have different seasons in our life, right? I don't have children, for one thing. And I know how much time and energy children take up in our lives. And we need to appreciate that if you're a parent, and be okay with, in this season of my life right now, my priority are my children. And I need to make sure I've got time to look after them, and I've got time to spend with them. And I'm okay we're not doing X, Y, and Z, because this season is all about my children. And there will be other parts of your life where you will have more time as the children grow up, where you may be able to get involved in other things. I don't have to worry about that. And that's a privilege that I have in the time that I have available. And the reason I share this is because I do get quite a few people who will come to me and say, oh, I wish I could do more. I wish I had, the time to do more. I feel so guilty for not being involved in my professional body, for not contributing or being available to mentor others, for not living to my purpose the way I want to live it. And I will always say to them that your chapter 1 is very different from my chapter 1, and comparison is the thief of joy. So be mindful, if you're listening and you're watching other people sharing things and things that they're doing, remember that most of them have probably got a bit of help behind the scenes to help them be there. And those who may not have the help probably have a little bit more capacity because they don't have any dependents, potentially. I would always say, take it with a pinch of salt on that. And I'm not saying that I don't have a busy schedule. I do. I am very intentional with my time. But I love everything that I do. And I will make time for the things that I love, which does mean I do sacrifice other things. So I may not get to go out as much as I would like to go out with friends because I'm often traveling or going to a conference or attending a workshop. But I love it. For me, that's fun. And fun is subjective, right? For so many different people. And that's really important to remember.
Yep, I agree. I mean, life is short. Well, why do it if you're not
Yeah.
not enjoying it? But I also believe that having that drive actually helps you push even when things get tough.
Yes, definitely.
Thanks a lot for sharing that, and it's great to have be able to put that out of the way. So in your book, Building a Culture of Inclusivity, you talk about creating workplaces where everyone belongs. Mm-hmm. How do you think storytelling and good and effective, efficient communications helps to build those bridges for inclusivity?
Yes, great question. For me, storytelling is what we're about as communication professionals. In fact, what humans are about. If you think, if you have young people in your life, or even if you're meeting a friend for lunch or dinner or whatever, you always engage in storytelling, right? So you set the scene, you talk about what happened, you talk about the heroes and the villains, and then you come to a conclusion and how it all worked out. Every part of who we are and how we talk and communicate is about telling a story. If we didn't do it in a storytelling fashion, it'll be quite monotone and a bit boring, right? But some reason in the workplace, we do go down the bullet point list So everything feels like it's a task and a bullet. And we're not very good at that kind of storytelling piece sometimes. And as you just quite clearly articulated, storytelling builds bridges. It builds connection, it helps people belong, it helps you understand somebody else who's from a different culture, a different perspective, a different background. It brings people closer together, it helps you understand where they're coming from. Those kind of stories are so powerful, and as communication professionals we have a part to play in that storytelling. And the reason we connect storytelling to belonging is because it allows people to feel that they have a voice and they're being heard, and everyone connects to a story, even if you are the most coldest heart out there to the most vulnerable person you ever meet. Storytelling is our biggest connector. And that's why, if you were reading a story to a child at nighttime, there's a reason why they turn around and say, oh, just one more story, just one more before we go. People love it. And we do it every day. We do it in all our lives. We tell a story. And we do seem, in my opinion, to struggle a little bit in the workplace. When leaders are giving an update, it can become quite cold and a bit aloof. When we're sharing stuff in the newsletter, it becomes quite factual. And we don't tend to lean into that storytelling as much as we should do. And I always advise our comms professionals that lean into that creativity. What is the story? What are you telling people? Why do you want to evoke that emotion? What is the end goal of this? How do you want people to feel? What do you want them to think? What do you want to do with that information that you're telling them? A bullet pointed list and a very monotone, task focused deliverable has its place, don't get me wrong, but not when it comes to building connection and belonging.
Yeah. I mean, an interesting side note. Last night, my kids did play out this scenario that you painted, and interestingly, we're reading Enid Blyton's five find outers.
Yes, yeah.
They kept their constant criticism of the book is the chapters are too short.
Yes. Everyone loves a story. Like our body language when someone's telling a compelling story, how we lean in, how we're so engaged. We're tuned into the whole concept and the scenario of what they're doing. Everybody loves a story. Even if you go to a conference and you listen to a speaker, the speakers who share a really compelling, interesting story about their life. You mentioned earlier to me that I'm quite vulnerable on my LinkedIn post, and I'm very open about my life and how I got to where I am today, because people relate to that. People relate to those stories. We get sucked into it. We want to know more. People generally connect to people, not the item we're trying to sell, or the service that we're trying to sell, or the customers that we're trying to bring in. People want to know more about people because we are the human race is very much about connection. And that's why your kids, rightly so, those chapters are very short, and they want to know more, and they want to be, it feels safe to be in that space, right? Listening to somebody read a story to you. It's such a powerful thing to have, honestly.
It sure is. And I probably just shift attention, a focus on the leaders in leadership roles, perhaps to professionals who are actually growing. And I would like to use you as a model. How you're building your personal brand, but also using your brand, your personal brand, your personal stories to create for yourself a platform on which you can actually lift other people.
Yes.
You got any tips for someone who is trying to build a personal brand and still trying to keep an eye on their, career progression?
Yes. Great question again. Personal brand makes most people feel quite uncomfortable. And every time I talk about it, they get the ick. We say in the UK, the ick, like, oh, I feel so uncomfortable with this, I don't want to talk about it. Because we're often conditioned as human beings, and definitely people from underrepresented groups, by the way, to not to show off too much. Don't advocate for yourself too much because people will think you've got a massive ego. Nobody likes anyone with an ego. Be humble, keep your head down, don't rock the boat. Be cautious about how much you share about yourself. Those are the things that we get conditioned on. And people often say to me, I don't like a show off. I don't like people who brag too much. I don't like people who go on about X, Y, and Z and how great they are. And that is a proper turn off for individuals because nobody wants to be seen as a show off. Nobody wants to be seen as egomaniac, talking about themselves all the time. So when we talk about personal brand, instantly it turns people off because they feel, oh goodness, I can't talk about myself in that way. The thing with brand and personal brand, it's about how you want to show up as a person. So what is it that you want people to say about you when you're not in the room? How do people reference you when you don't have a presence? What do you want to be known for in the industry that you're working in? How do you want people to reference you about the topics that you're interested in? Those are the things that we should be kind of focusing on. We spend so much of our time listening to the narratives of other people about who and what we should be that we lose our own identity in all of this. We are pitted against what other people have defined as good leadership. We are pitted against what people define as a good mother, a good daughter, a good son, a good father. There's this comparison thing that I mentioned earlier. And often what good looks like has been defined by somebody who's got greater privilege than what we will ever have. And we need to be quite mindful about what good looks like for us and what we do. And as soon as we recognize that in ourselves, that's when we come alive in our personal brand and our presence. And it doesn't really matter what anybody else says about you. It's how you feel about yourself. And that's why I'm really passionate about the brand and the story that I tell about my brand and who I am, because you're the best person to tell your own story. You never want anyone else to tell your story on your behalf, because they will always have bias that will determine how they share that story about you. So rather than allowing anyone else to take control of your narrative, the best case scenario is that you take control of it yourself. And that's managing your own brand. And if you're struggling to articulate what that brand means for you, what your brand is for you, then you need to do a little bit of deep work on who you are and what you stand for. And this is a work in progress, right? Like I said to you earlier, we're in different seasons all the time. Things happen. We don't spend enough time understanding who we are. If I asked your listeners right now, when was the last time you sat down on yourself, you went off on your own and you spent a good day thinking about your challenges, your successes, your learning, your development, what works well, what doesn't work as well, feedback, advice, all of that. I can guarantee there'll be a few hands, if that do that. And we need to do this on a regular basis. And the day I decided to take control of my narrative is when I decided that I also need to take control of my confidence in this. And I spent so much of my life, early career, waiting for validation and permission from other people who didn't have my lived experience, by the way, waiting for them to tell me that I was good enough to go and do something else. And that stopped me progressing. And I realized that if I wanted to progress in my career, I had to control my narrative and I had to control my development and learning. And I needed to be aware of what I needed, what I liked doing, what I enjoyed doing, and what wasn't in my area of genius. Because not all of us can be great at everything as much as we think we should be. We can't be. And understanding my strengths and developing my strengths rather than focusing on my weaknesses and trying to develop my weaknesses is what got me to where I am today. And that's the biggest piece of advice I will give anyone who's listening. Don't worry too much about the stuff you're not very good at and believe you'll never get good at. Focus on the stuff you are brilliant at and become even better at it, because that's going to be your unique offering. That's going to be your strength that you're going to bring to any team in terms of diversity of thought and how you will approach challenges and problems. You don't have to be mediocre at everything. You want to be brilliant at something. And that's what I would say to anyone who feels a bit lost and stuck. Figure out who you are. Step one, who are you? What are your values? What do you stand for? What's your purpose? What do you want to achieve? What's your outcomes? Spend that day, 2 days, whatever it takes. Like, it took me 6 months every day doing a little bit of something. Figure out what that is and what you want to achieve. Then articulate that on paper. Write it down. I always do the activity I always share with folks is write down your perfect day. From the moment you from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, what does that day look like? What are you doing? What are people saying about you? How do you feel? Describe it, write it down and put it in there. And then from that, you can then start articulating your brand. What is it that you want to be known for? What are the language and the words that you want to share with others? How do you want people to talk about you when you're not in that room? And that will help you articulate your personal brand.
That's very powerful. I mean, so since you took up the mantle of leadership at CIPR, as and also as the its first South Asian woman president. Let's start by maybe painting what does a day in the life look like
for a president. It is a day in a life is such, it is so varied. That is number one. No day in the whole year is the same ever. And as a multi-entrepreneur, because I do have a few businesses alongside a leader like me and Comms Rebel, every day is a very different day. So for the average day, whatever that average day may look like, is, normally it's I'm not an early starter, so you will not find me online before 9 a.m. generally. My best time, I start work normally around 10 o'clock in the morning. The first couple of hours when I wake are all about me. And it's really important to take care of yourself because you can't pour from an empty jug. So the first thing I will probably do is get up and go to the gym and spend a good hour in the gym working out, either do a run or do some strength training or whatever that clears my mind for the day. I'll get back and have a leisurely breakfast generally, where I'll be scrolling on social media, posting or engaging with other people's content, because it's always nice to build a community. I'm a big community fan. And then normally I will log on around about 10:30. Well, I'll check my emails and spend about 20 minutes just making sure that I'm on top of the tasks that I've set myself. And the rest of the day is then dictated by my diary often. So I'll have client calls. I may be delivering a workshop. I might be speaking at an event. I might have to go and do some travel. There's all that kind of client work stuff comes in. Fridays are normally the days, is the day I normally keep free, completely free from meetings often, because that's when I normally do my CIPR of work. So I dedicate the day of Friday on catching up with CIPR tasks, making sure that I'm connecting with the group volunteers that we have, so group chairs and council members. So I always like to check in on members. So I'll often do a kind of informal check-ins with people that I know who are members to see how they're getting on. I'll read what people are saying about CIPR. So I often have an alert set up to see what people are saying, so I can keep on top of what the sentiments are. I'll check in with the CEO, Alistair, and Maria, who's the chair, the independent chair, to see if I've caught everything that they had. So we normally communicate through WhatsApp. So I'll keep on top of all of that. I'll do a bit of a check-in with Bazana, who's the president-elect. He's coming in to make sure that I've captured everything from her point of view. So Fridays is normally very focused on CIPR things, with a few odd client meetings if needed or things like that. But again, it's a very casual, quite an informal day. But my non-negotiables are definitely nothing before 10 a.m. unless it's critical, because my well-being has to come first. And then I try not to work past 6:30 in the evening. And I log off and I switch everything off and I don't check emails then until the next day. And that's my agreement to myself. And I rarely work weekends because it's important. And I say this because some people make the assumption that I must be working 24/7 all the time, every hour of the day. It doesn't mean that I don't stop thinking about work. I do think about work all the time, to be honest. Different ideas come to me at different points of the day. But I do try and protect my time, because my first ever career, comms career, not my other career, was working in a mental health hospital as a communications manager, and I saw patients who had burnt out and had suffered from mental health challenges because of burnout. And it was great in a way, as sad as it was, that I witnessed that so early on in my career, because it reminded me that no work and no amount of hardship is worth your mental health.
That's wow. That's very insightful. Thank you. You had a very, I would say, long and illustrious career in PR communications generally, and we are right now, in we live very interesting times.
Yes.
And some of the changes that we've seen recently, that really, I just imagine myself waking up, and I have this is a true story. Waking up every morning to text messages from colleagues and friends, or or whatnot, or alerts that point towards recent trends in DEI.
Yes.
And all the drama and the questions and the work that comes with that for us communication specialists. I have a question. Is DEI, is it for Black people?
Such a great question. I mean, if you listen to the commentary that we are subjected to, Sochi, you would think that DEI is only about race, right? And it's only about Black people, or it's only about South Asians, or it's only about women generally, and what people fail to understand, that the vitriol being shared by Trump and his friends will impact every single one of us at some point. None of us will escape not being impacted by the lack of DEI in organizations, whether it's ageism, whether it's disability, whether it's about our children who may suffer because of the consequences of our doing, to be honest. And that's what I find really interesting about DE&I. And you're right? Folks think it's about making sure that Black folks don't get above their station. It's about making sure that women know their place behind the men. It's about making sure that people from different cultures know their place when they emigrate to a different country and they stay, below the lines of the white folks. Because the thing is, I read this saying that people generally want you to do well, but not better than them. And as soon as there's risk of you doing better than them, that's when they get freaked out. And that's what Trump is leading by fear. And the thing you need to remember is that when people are broken and when they're fearful, they are easier to control. And that is why people want you broken. They want you to be fearful. They want you to be scared about what this means for humanity. And when you're scared and you're frightened, you either conform to what these powerful people are telling you, or you break. And then you're easier to manipulate, generally. And that's a common theme. And if you look at all the significant moments in history that's led to crisis, that's basically what's happened, right? They've created fear. They've pitted people against each other. They have broken people. They have scared people. And it's led to the disastrous consequences that we've witnessed over the decades of human existence. What I will always say to people is be mindful about what you are reading and what you are hearing, and be aware of what you can control within your own personal accountability. Because if we all took personal accountability of bringing fairness into the world, then we wouldn't really need diversity, equity, and inclusion, because everyone is behaving fairly. But the reason people don't behave fairly is because they're scared that if they do open up opportunities for others who are different from them, what does that mean for them? They lose out. And I've said this for so many years, it's never about taking away from other people. It's about making the table bigger. Why can't we make the table bigger? Why is it about taking stuff away from others to give to another person? That isn't what life should be about. The life should be about making the table bigger, holding our hands out and bringing people with us, allowing them to thrive just as much as you're thriving, so we can all live a fulfilling life without being pitted against each other. And the sad thing about all of what we're hearing and listening is that people are falling. People are 100% falling for this fake belief that the immigrants and the migrants and the illegals are taking over the world and destroying healthcare systems, so the Americans or the people who deserve it are not getting the benefits of it. And if you really look at the data and the figures, it's minutiae. What is breaking the system are these rich people who are not putting in equal and equitable things in place and stretching as much budget as they possibly can and putting systemic barriers in place that everyday people can't access it. So they decide to blame the fault of their leaders who should be fixing these problems onto the marginalized folks who are a small minority of the population overall, and they're blaming everything that's going wrong on these people. And if we really looked at the data and the information around us, we realize actually it's all nonsensical. But they're doing it to control. They're doing it so the rich can get richer. The billion, I'm not talking about the everyday rich, I'm talking about the extreme billionaires, the 1% of this population who are benefiting a lot from the scaremongering that many of these other country leaders are driving. And it's to fill their pockets, ultimately.
How do we push back? How do we manage this resistance, or tackle resistance to change as communications?
A great question. Again, we have to look at what's in our center of control. If you are, and this is the thing, those who are pulling back on diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, some of them are pulling it back because they recognize that it's not having the impact that they need. But the headlines don't tell us that, right? The headlines, again, scaremongering everybody, saying they're pulling back. But when you read the detail underneath, they're actually pulling back to review it, to make sure they're adding value and they're allocating resources to the right programs. And some of them are doing that, and we need to be aware of who those companies are. Those who are completely pulling away and are using what's going on as an excuse not to look at EDI were never interested in equity, diversity, and inclusion, ever. They were doing it because they felt pressured to do it, because they were worried about being cancelled. And in my opinion, controversially or not, those are the people that we want to avoid. And I'm glad that they've unmasked, that they don't care, because it means that I will never advocate for them or go and offer my services for them, because people like me don't belong there. And I'm okay with that. You crack on with your dominant culture of whoever you want there. I'll go and give my services elsewhere because I know I'm good at what I do. And we have the choice as human beings to decide ultimately where we want to commit our skills to. And that's where I would say that step one is understanding actually who are our friends and who are our foes. And where do people like us who are different from the dominant culture and live in a very dominant country, where do we go and where do we give our services and skills to, right? That's step one. The second thing is, if just because somebody pulls away a program doesn't automatically mean that every person in that business is going to become a racist, homophobic, sexist, misogynistic, ableist individual. If you are a truly inclusive leader and you genuinely care and you're compassionate and you want everyone to thrive around you, continue doing that. Continue being fair, being transparent, giving every single person equal opportunities to thrive, making sure that your bias doesn't play a big part in the decisions that you're making. If you believe it might do, then surround yourself with advisors to give you the guidance that you might need. Go and educate yourself. So you may not have a program in-house to support you. There's plenty of people who have written books, do podcasts like this, who go onto YouTube and share their stories. Go and find them and listen and educate yourself about it, and continue leading rather than following. And whatever you are responsible for and the people you're responsible for, you continue being that compassionate leader, because you will eventually see the benefits of that. And you have to remind yourself, what side of history do I want to be on? Because this all will be captured in the history books. How do you want to be remembered by the people who work with you? How do you want to be remembered when somebody is progressing in their career thanks to you. I remember my first manager, Catherine, and that was 22 years ago. And I still remember her to this day about how much she helped me. I also remember the toxic bosses, but not for the reason that they want to be remembered for. And that's what you want to remind yourselves. We're not here forever. None of us, and this is the other thing that I think some of us forget as human beings, we're so minutiae in the grand scheme of things that the time we have on this earth, God willing, it's a good amount of time, it's not forever. So you decide how you want to spend the time you've got on either helping people and leaving a legacy or adding to the toxic history that's being created right now. And what do you want people to remember you for?
And we're seeing that in a not completely unrelated case, Meta's decision to hands off, their responsibility to ensure that people or their users are getting verified information, and they're delegating that agency to users and saying, you have that responsibility of ensuring that the information that you're getting is, ratified. What techniques do professionals like us deploy to ensure that we counter false narratives, whether of the brand, of or by our brands?
Yeah, we have to get better at research, and we have to get better at doing due diligence. We are very often very busy professionals who are doing multiple things, because often, as you will know, communications is under-resourced and it doesn't have as much budget available as it used to, or never has done in some cases, especially internal comms. So I am fully aware that many of the communication professionals who might be listening are already struggling with time. Time is a big commodity, but we have to prioritize due diligence. We have to do our checks on the information that we are receiving, especially when it's coming from news sources that are not verified, or nowadays AI, right? So a lot of folks are using AI, and rightly they should, right? The world is going to, I don't think it's ever going to go away. I think it will level out eventually. I think that the enthusiasm for it as it is today, eventually it will level out, but it's not going away. It's like the calculator. It's like the internet. This is here to stay. So we need to be responsible users of this tool, which is what it is. Technically, it's a tool, and make sure that we're doing our due diligence. And we are not very, I am stereotyping here a lot, and I know there are people who are better, but generally, we're not very good at verifying information. And we need to get better at it. And we need to teach ourselves on looking at the sources, making sure that we understand how to critique some of this stuff that comes our way and ask curious questions about the information that's been shared with us. That way, we can make sure that it's ratified and it's verified and it's accurate. And I will always advocate for having a single source of truth in the workplace where colleagues can visit to make sure that the information being shared is accurate. And I will always say to leaders that we need one place where colleagues can go to find out information about the business, so they're not getting carried away, or rumor mill, which is much quicker than the official channels, takes over. And which is why I am another advocate of two-way feedback, two-way broadcast. We can't just do one way. We have to be able to allow colleagues to be able to feed back anything that they hear or see, because they're our biggest advocates, right? Employee advocacy is a big part of the work that we do, and yet we don't tend to pay much attention to it.
True, that's true. And just to link a little bit, leaning into the issue of AI, organizations are yet to, they don't have more or less an SOP right now, especially where communications is concerned, in terms of how they approach, how they use AI responsibly. What kind of statements, or should we say caveats maybe on one side, but also precautions do organizations take to ensure that they are taking on AI as an issue, but also as a tool, responsibly, and also with by also ensuring that they're staying humane in their communications.
Yeah. They need to, again, we go back to education. So they need to do a training on it, and they need to have it at induction. So the moment somebody joins your organization, they have an understanding of how AI is used in the workplace and how not to use it. There does need to be a standard operating procedure around AI. What is it that we use it for? What is it that we don't use it for? What are the risks of using it? This is the AI tool that we use in this organization. We don't use any other, because this is not, the data is not accurate, or we have too much commercial sensitivities to use it. People don't know what they don't know, right? And the leaders in the organization have to lead by example. Hiding it or telling people not to use it is not going to work, because people will use it. As humans, we are curious, right? Other people around us may be talking about it, so instantly we're going to want to use it. And we may not use it on our work computers, but we're definitely using it on our mobile phones, and we're definitely using it on our personal computers. And I can imagine there's a lot of colleagues who are probably using it with commercial sensitive information, because they haven't been taught the risks involved when you are putting commercially sensitive information into things like ChatGPT. That isn't regulated in the way that they may believe it is. And if you don't tell them at the start the risks, rather than saying to somebody, no, you're not using it, you need to explain the why. So the reason we don't use ChatGPT here, the reason we don't upload our documents onto ChatGPT, for example, it could be any AI tool, but ChatGPT is the most common one at the moment, is because it does this, and this is the commercial sensitivities that we have. And as soon as it goes into ChatGPT, we don't own the data. The data's gone completely, and we can't remove it. So it's a risk for our company from a commercial point of view. If you want to use AI, then Copilot, for example, is the tool that we recommend that you use. As an example, it could be whatever tool that you commission in your organization that you feel is safe for your organization to use. But you need to look at your hiring practices as well. So look at the skill sets that you might need going forward in terms of your team to make sure that you're fit for the future. And you're going to have to start introducing this into your job descriptions for communication and PR people. Because if you don't have people skilled in AI coming into your team, you're going to lag and get left behind, and you're going to have to run to catch up. So I would encourage anybody now who's going through recruitment to think about what that looks like for a future job description, and how to upskill your team in using AI ethically, morally, and with curiosity.
Awesome. And could you share an example of an organization or company that is presently successfully using storytelling to rise or resist change, resist change, especially to resist the negative change, more or less, but successfully using it to create a culture and amplify their own culture of inclusivity.
Yeah, Costco. So Costco are a great example of how to control the narrative. They were one of the first companies to stand up and say, we are not backing down from our initiatives and our program. We are committed to what we are doing. We have said no to our shareholders. It's a bold move to do that. And they did it by sharing stories about their colleagues. We've seen the impact inclusion has on our workplace. We are open to everybody, anyone from any background, from any demographic, from any socio-economic background. We want anyone is welcome in our Costco warehouses, because we know it makes a difference. And their storytelling is simple but effective. And I know, right, they're in the spotlight, Sochi, right? They're in the spotlight. Knowing that they will potentially be made an example of, which could happen, is what makes me applaud them even louder. So they knew the risks involved in doing what they did and standing up against the the attacks, I would say. And yet the chief executive was like, absolutely not. I am standing firm. And they've seen the benefits of that, by the way. They've seen the number, the stores are packed out. They've seen an increase in profits. They've seen people are dedicating their shopping to Costco stores. It's paid off. And I know that wasn't their intention, but it's been a positive outcome for that. And I hope it continues and long continues that they do that. But Costco is definitely somebody that I have been watching quite closely over the last few weeks and applauding them for supporting those who cannot support themselves.
Yeah, and when I saw the communique the release they made, I was elated because we do need these bright shining examples that it can be done. Brands can speak up and stand out at the same time. You don't need to always follow or kowtow to oppressors and oppressing narratives. Thank you for sharing that, and it's really, really validating. Thank you. Well, at this point we come to the end of the serious questions, and I usually round up conversations with a light-hearted
nice
session. So we have rapid fire questions, and
fire. Okay, I'm ready.
Ready when you are.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your go-to comfort food?
Mashed potato.
Okay. Hey.
Can't go wrong with a carb.
Okay. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be?
Dead or alive, or does it matter?
It doesn't matter. Well, let's do one dead, one alive.
Oh, okay. I would love to have dinner with Ella Fitzgerald, who is was a famous jazz singer. I love her music, absolutely. And alive, I would love to have dinner with Shonda Rhimes, who is the author of The Year of Yes, because that is a book that transformed my life, and I would like to have the opportunity to say thank you in person.
Oh, if Shonda Rhimes ever gets wind of this.
Yes, Shonda, if you're listening, I am open. I will fly out to you. Don't worry, it won't be on your expense.
The universe will align. Don't worry.
Who knows?
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Okay. Favorite book that impacted your life? I know you already said Year of Yes, but just in case there's any other.
Year of Yes, and also Soundtracks by John Acuff. An incredible book that I believe doesn't have the kudos that it deserves. It's all about how you change, when you're on the radio station and you change the music if you don't like it. His concept is similar, but it's about our brain. Loved the book. A very short read. John Acuff, Soundtracks. Revolutionary. Another great book.
I'll link to it in the description so anyone can check it out.
Mm-hmm.
What's a skill you've always wanted to learn but haven't had the chance to yet?
Skill, magic. I would love to be a magician, learn those tricks that magicians do, when they flip a card over and you find it in your shoe. Oh my goodness, I would just love to be that clever to be able to do that. It's illusion, right? So I would love to learn the skill of illusion. I love all that. I'm a huge fan of anyone that can do stuff like that. So yeah, great question, that one. Yeah, illusion.
That's interesting. I don't know. Nobody has ever said that. That's interesting.
I'm obsessed with those videos of magicians who do those incredible things where they can guess your number in your head or your grandmother's favorite dish and things like that. I love it. It's not magic. It's not magic, right? It's illusion. It may be magic. Who knows? If a magician is listening to that, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you seem to be hanging on to. It's not magic. It's not magic.
But now I'm thinking maybe it's magic. Maybe it is. But I love to leave people in awe. That's what my thing, where it leads to.
Oh, nice. I do remember one an account by a podcaster. He said he spoke to a popular magic illusionist, and he just went. He had in his account. He said he went to a show. He was invited to a show, I think, and or a dinner event to which that performer was invited to do something. And he said he was really in awe of the guy's performance, and he went to meet him. And he said, I would really like to have your card. And the guy said, you have it already. And he was like, sorry? This is someone you never approached. He had never approached. He said, you have it already. He said, how do you mean? He said, it's in your pocket. And the guy looked in his pocket and he found the card. Like, how? Okay. I don't know. It could be magic.
I've met a few illusionists who do stuff like that, which absolutely throws me. Like there was a dot left in my hand. Like there's no way he could have done that. My hand was closed, and I opened it up. There was a black marker on my palm.
No.
Yeah, I've witnessed it personally. Like I was like, how did you? Like my fist was closed. How did you? How? Like yeah, it is bizarre.
Okay.
How they do it.
Yeah, that's the word. God.
Scary, right?
Yeah, it's scary. I probably will sleep that night. I
know.
Advita, it's been delightful having you, and I want to thank you for being so generous with your time and your expertise. It really means a lot.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks, Dr.
Thank you.